DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. We are joined by Riley Jensen, college football expert and mental performance coach. Riley, good morning.
What's happening? A little bounce back with Huey Lewis in the news?
Yes.
Why do I feel like PK might be a Huey Lewis in the news fan?
Well, that's not why.
I love all music.
No, you hate that quote, and now you utter it. Huey Lewis and News drummer Bill Gibson is 73 today, so Yacht gave them the Band of the Day honors.
Oh, I like it. It actually reminds me of my dad. Growing up in the 80s, I listened to a lot of Huey Lewis in the news. It's hip to be square.
There it is. That was a big album. Well, Riley, you were a former quarterback. The Utes are going through quarterback injuries again. What was your reaction when you heard Brandon Rose is out?
Do we know what the injury is? Because I didn't hear that part.
Yeah, I think it's at the foot level, somewhere down there.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't feel snake bit as a University of Utah fan right now, I don't know how you would feel any other way. It's too bad. I mean, I think Brandon Rose was doing some nice stuff. I think he brought a little bit of energy to the team. Looking through the two games that I saw him play, I know he went 8 for 10 in the first half and he played well, but there were some adjustments made in the second half that made it really, really tough for him. And I think he was going to be a work in progress as well. I just don't think, with Cam Rising out this year, I don't think they were quite developed to the quarterback position to do what they wanted to do, and I think it's led to a lot of disappointment. I think there was high expectations for the University of Utah, and I think it's hard when you don't have a quarterback to achieve some of the objectives that you think you can achieve.
So now Isaac Wilson is back in. He's had an up-and-down season, which should be expected as a freshman. Played a bunch early, hasn't played in a bit. As you have the opportunity, or if you had the opportunity to advise him now he's got a new offensive coordinator, so everything's changed. It has probably been the most, literally when he gets done playing football, he could maybe look back and say, wow, that was the craziest season I had. Wouldn't surprise me if he had the opportunity to say that. But nevertheless, he's got the start here going into Saturday. What would you tell him?
Well, I think the thing that you have to focus on in the Isaac Wilson situation right now is what can I learn from this? It's not woe is me. It can't be, excuse me, just about sneezed on air there. It can't be about.
They come in threes, Riley. Brace yourself.
I know. I'm trying to avoid it. It can't be about a victimhood mentality, because it's really easy right now to feel like you're a victim, because to start the year, you weren't going to be the starter. You were going to learn from Cam Rising. You were going to do all these amazing things as a backup. Then it turns out that you're in and you're playing and you're learning and progressing, but you're back and forth because you never know when Cam Rising is going to come back. And things just haven't been ideal. And so I think one of the things that you have to do is just say, hey, you are not a victim. This is another opportunity for you to get better. It's another opportunity for you to show what you're going to be in the future. And the lesson has to be that all of this is going to make me a better quarterback, because it has not been an easy season for him. It's not been an easy season for the team. And I think he's just got to look at it as another opportunity to move forward in his career, rather than, oh my gosh, nobody believed in me. Then they believed in me. Now they don't believe in me. Now somebody's hurt, so I'm back in. And it doesn't matter how you get your opportunity. It's what you do with your opportunity that counts. And so, look, most of us don't get a lot of attention in our lives. Most of us are not first-round draft picks. Most of us are free agents. I mean, I might not even been my wife's first choice. It's what you do with your opportunity that counts.
I heard a discussion, and this is about young quarterbacks in the NFL. Some national NFL people were talking about it might help Caleb Williams to sit just for a few games. That Bryce Young sat while Andy Dalton started his 6 games. And hey, they've beaten 2 bad teams, but Carolina's beaten 2 teams. Who cares if they're bad? And Young has looked better after sitting for a half dozen games and seeing stuff, having played, and helped them process stuff. And they said Drake May with the Patriots, similar deal, and they've won 2 out of 3. And they were suggesting it for Caleb Williams. So is there a chance that sitting just a little bit, Isaac sees the game differently and better?
Oh, I don't think there's any question. I think one of the best things that happened to me my sophomore year of college football, and I thought it took a lot of wisdom from – I didn't like it at the time, but I think it took a lot of wisdom from my offense coordinator. He goes, look, I'm pulling you for the next 2 series, and I want you to calm down, and I want you to watch the game, and I want you to come back in after 2 series, and I want you to play the way I know you know how to play. Now, that wasn't a whole game, right? That wasn't the exact same scenario. But I don't know why. It totally worked for me. It was enough of a message to say, hey, you need to calm down and just play the way I know you can play. And I think sometimes that message can be sent by sitting for a couple of games. And you're right. I mean, it might have helped Caleb Williams to sit. It might have helped Isaac, because what happens when you're thrown into the fire too early is the speed of the game and the enormity of the game feels overwhelming. And now, look, in Isaac Wilson's place, I don't think he's been afraid of the moment. But sometimes it's nice to just be able to look at it and cut your teeth without being the one that makes all the mistakes, right? And to be able to see it in real and live time and then come back in and play it. So I think it could be a help, and I think it could be a good experience, but it also depends on the mentality of the player. I mean, Caleb Williams, when you're talking about Caleb Williams, I don't know. I haven't liked his body language for 2-3 years, and I don't like it now, and I don't know that if he gets benched that actually helps him. But I do think that there are some quarterbacks that's a really, really good thing, because none of these guys want to come out and play bad. Nobody plays college football to go out and throw 8 touchdowns and 8 interceptions and have everybody criticize them. That's not what you're dreaming about and thinking about when you're growing up. So I think it could be an interesting scenario that you're talking about.
You're the play caller. What plays you calling for him?
It's tough right now. In the Houston game, I felt like he'd lost a lot of confidence. There were some easy throws that he was missing, and I felt like they were throws that were designed to give him some confidence. I think the most important thing for Isaac, I actually think it's important for him to run the ball a couple times at the first of the game. So I think you want to get some quarterback runs in there and get him hit, because I think when he gets hit a little bit, it kind of gets his juices flowing. And then I think you want a couple of screens, a couple of easy setup throws, maybe even go empty formation where there's nobody in the backfield, where he just has to throw a quick hitter that's an easy throw. And you want – it's almost like in basketball with a quarterback where, you know, Jerry Sloan used to always say, hey, man, if you're not hitting, go to the hoop a couple times and get fouled, or go to the hoop a couple times and see the ball go through the net with getting a layup, and then start shooting the threes, right? And I think that's sometimes what you have to do with young quarterbacks or quarterbacks that are feeling a little bit of confidence issues, is get them a couple of completions so they could actually see a catch, so they could actually see and feel just like a completion, and then you start taking some shots downfield. But I think the problem with that is there's a lot of defenses that know that he's not confident, and they're going to try and do that at the first of the game, so they bring it up in the box, and they don't necessarily feel like great plays. And so it's a mix. It's a mix of things. You gotta give him some confidence, and so that's why I think sometimes running the ball early is really good for quarterbacks, just to get them awake and get them kind of feeling like they're in the game.
PK loves to say it's not just who you're playing, it's when you're playing them. And Kansas seemed really snake-bit early in the year. But they've won 2 of their last 3. They got to be feeling a little better about themselves. How worried are you about BYU? That was an awfully emotional game last week. You think they can fill the tank and be ready to go again this week against a Kansas team that's picking up a couple wins now?
Well, I think that's what you got to be warning against if you're Coach Kalani, if you're Jay Hill, if you're Aaron Roderick, is you can't let down. Rent is due every week in college football, and especially as high as they're climbing and as much is on every game. And I don't love the chip on the shoulder thing about BYU fan where they're like, we're not ranked high enough. How come we're not this or that? But I do get this feeling, and I'm not trying to contribute to this chip on the shoulder thing. I do get the feeling that if BYU were to lose to Kansas or if they were to lose to Arizona State, that everybody would be looking for that excuse to just kick them right out of the top 12 in the playoff. And I do think this BYU team is a playoff team, and they deserve a chance to see what they can do in the playoffs. And the best way to do that is to win every week, whether it's by 1 point, whether it's by 3 points, or whether it's by 30 points. It's just to win every week. And so you definitely, psychologically, you need to be talking to these guys about getting back to the basics, about not reading the press clippings. And look, these are young men, the age of 18 to 24, that can fall into the traps of social media and Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat and all these things that tell them how great they are. If you're not careful, you can slip against Kansas. And I think BYU is a better team than Kansas, but it's about going out and finishing the job. You've got 3 games left that are uber important to your program.
That's some empty possessions there against Utah. Was there anything that they weren't doing or could do better? Obviously, anybody can do better, or more about Utah's defense?
So there were some empty possessions. I thought one of the game plans of the University of Utah that was maybe not talked about that much is they did a really good job on the defensive line, and even with their linebackers are getting their hands up if they didn't get home. And they really knocked down quite a few passes. To hold Retzlaff to 15 of 33 for, I think, 220 yards or something like that was a yeoman's effort. I thought it was really good stuff. The thing that the University of Utah does that is really, really difficult is they're able to get pressure on the quarterback with 4, and then they can play man-to-man behind it. And most of us offensive guys are very arrogant about man-to-man. We say, okay, well, we're going to win one-on-one matchups. You're going to have to zone it up against us. But the University of Utah does not do that. And they win a ton of matchups by getting pressure on you and making you throw perfect throws against their man-to-man defense. And then what I noticed as I broke down the game last week defensively for Morgan Scalley is he almost lulls you to sleep with a 4-2 cover 1 defense throughout the game. And then all of a sudden, at key points, he was throwing in a zone blitz and going 3 deep, and it caused just enough pause for Jake Retzlaff that he didn't want to make a mistake of throwing an interception, but it led to some sacks, and it led to some big plays for the defense. So I think the University of Utah's defense is as tough as anybody to go against. So yeah, there were some tough moments in the game. I thought there was a big drive by Jake where he had 3 completions in a row on the drive where he went down and scored on the quarterback sneak at the end. That was a big drive that showed that he had the moxie and the toughness to make some plays against this University of Utah defense in order to help his team win. But it was, I don't know, I think there were some empty possessions, but I think it was a combination of rivalry week and just Morgan Scalley being really tough to move the ball against.
BYU has 3 touchdowns on special teams, tied with UNLV for most in the country. Have they got one more thing in them? How much of that is good fortune and how much of that is really scripted and detailed and earned? and how much is just individual achievement, somebody making a play? And do you think there's another one out there for him?
Well, I think that there's no question in my mind that special teams is something that is emphasized and worked on, and you don't score 3 touchdowns without being very aware and very serious about special teams. So when those kind of things happen, but even when they're not scoring touchdowns, they're getting significant plays on special teams. When I coached at North Carolina State, we had 9 blocked kicks in one season, either on extra points, field goals, or punts. And you wouldn't believe how much we worked on it. Like, it became a pride point for a lot of those guys. And so I think, look, I don't know if they have another touchdown in them, but they have significantly good plays that are going to happen on special teams. And I think that's what makes this BYU team pretty special is there's guys on offense making plays, guys on defense making plays, and special teams making plays. And it's a point of emphasis for the team, and I think they've taken pride in it, and I think it's one of the reasons why they're 9-0 right now.
Jackson Dart's been doing really well over there in Ole Miss, and I know you know those guys and that family and all. You a first-round pick?
Yes. He's a first-round pick. I think he's ranked by a lot of the people somewhere between 6th and 11th. I think when the pros start coming around and they realize how good he was in the SEC, and when they test him, I mean, he's going to score off the charts in lifting. He's going to be faster than they think he is. And when they see his arm strength in person, I think he's going to jump up the boards. I think he's a top 4 quarterback pick, and that usually leads to a first-round pick. I don't know that he's going to be the first pick in the draft, but I think this win over Georgia and then the ability for them to win out and go to the playoff every single week, he's going to be making more and more money as far as going in the draft. He's really fun to watch. I think the coolest thing about Jackson Dart is his leadership and his moxie. We all know that he can throw the ball. We all saw him play at Corner Canyon. But his teammates love him. They love to be around him. And he is tough, man. That guy plays through injuries. He 2 years ago, I remember just talking to Jackson, and he had a groin injury in his left on the left side, kind of the left groin area. And then in the Alabama game, I talked to him after the Alabama game, and he pulled the other groin. And he's like, dude, I'm having a hard time walking. I'm like, well, what are you going to do? You can't even walk. And he goes, what do you mean, what am I going to do? And I'm like, oh, well, how are you going to get healed up for this week? And he goes, I'm going to thug it out, man. I'm going to play. I'm not playing now that I've got the starting job. And I think that's the fun part about Jackson is how tough he is. I think he knows how valuable it is to play the quarterback position because there's always people gunning to take away your job. And that guy just plays through injuries like nobody that I've seen. And he's really, really tough. And it's fun to watch. For me, it's really fun to watch a kid from Utah. And I feel this way about Madsen up at Boise State. I love it that quarterbacks from the state of Utah are doing well outside of the state of Utah because I think there's been really good skill positions in the state of Utah for a long time. And, even at wide receiver, Dax Milne, Puka Nacua, some of these guys doing really well and going to the pros. It's just really fun to watch these Utah kids go and play well on the national stage and even in the NFL.
Well, Riley, we appreciate it as always. Enjoy the games. We'll talk to you again next week.
All right, man. You guys take care. I appreciate it.
Riley Jensen joining us every week here on The Zone, the former Aggie quarterback and mental performance coach. DJ and PK, Brian Howell, Colorado Buffaloes beat writer for Buff Zone and the Boulder Daily Camera. The Utes' next opponent, the Cougars' possible/probable opponent for the Big 12 title game in Arlington. We will talk with him about CU coming up at 9 o'clock. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone.